I recently watched this video by YouTube user Techmoan, his review of the Philips CAM295 camcorder, and he gave it a pretty good review, especially for the low price he paid. And I was kind of looking for one of these based on his recommendation. Now it turns out the CAM295 appears to only have been sold in Europe, but there was a similar model that was sold here in the USA, the Philips CAM300, which appears to be the same thing as the 295, except it adds image stabilization, which is one of the features that Techmoan criticized the 295 for lacking. I was also attracted to this camcorder because it has a good sounding stereo built-in microphone, and people who have watched my videos should know that I consider audio quality to be equally as important as video quality when considering a camcorder, which is one of the main reasons why I was attracted to this, because of its high quality audio and decent quality video for a low price. And as far as getting one of these cameras for yourself goes, it is a discontinued model, but as of taking this video in March 2013, it is still available on Amazon.com. Although I was able to get it on eBay for a cheaper price. I got mine for $79.99 plus shipping, so about $10 cheaper than it is here, including the shipping that I paid. So let's take a closer look at the Philips CAM300 pocket-sized HD camcorder. It's a Philips QVida 3-inch touchscreen camcorder. CAM300 WH for white. I think you can also get this in black color. It says film in HD 1080p and take 12 megapixel pictures with advanced anti-shake technology, flashlight, which is really just an LED light, it's not a strobe, and 3-inch touchscreen. Has a USB connector, no cables, no fuss. Well, that's right, it does not come with any cables. Easy edit and sharing on TV, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or email. It takes a micro SD card. Has some minimum requirements there. It says Mac users can use iMovie, no Mac software is included, as typical. It says copyright 2011. I can't even pronounce that name. Something foreign sounding, Philips Electronics NV. And it says HDMI cables not included. It says 300 megabytes. It does have some built-in memory, but it's only good enough for recording like 30 seconds of video, so it's not really useful for anything. And of course made in China, and that's about it for the box. So we just slide it open, and there's our camera. And underneath the camera tray we got a notice saying that for users in US, please change the TV system and the settings to Ntsc, because from the factory it comes set to PAL. And then there's a quick start guide, your typical pictograms showing how to plug stuff in and turn it on, and safety instructions in various languages. It also shows the internal battery, which is not user removable. It says to remove the battery before throwing the thing out or recycling it, but it doesn't show you how to get to the battery. It just says bring your product to a professional to remove the built-in battery. I'm sure there's some way to unclip the case and get to that. And below all that we got a hand strap and a little carrying bag, which is a little bit dirty. Must have been sitting in the box for a while. And that's it. On the front of the camera is the autofocus lens. The specifications say it can focus as close as 10 centimeters, so it won't do extreme close-ups, but for most purposes it'll work fine. Then below that is what Philips calls the flash, which is really just a white LED light. It will try to act as a flash for taking photos, although obviously it won't be as good as a real strobe flash. And in video mode, the flash acts as a LED video light, which stays on constantly as long as you have that feature turned on. On the bottom here is the flip out USB arm. There's a little button there to pop it out. Philips does not give you an extension cable to connect this to your computer, so unless you want to have it hanging off your USB port, you might want to get an extension cable for that. You can fold it back in. There's the tripod screw mount, which is a plastic mount, so it's not going to be as sturdy as a metal one. There's the little thing for putting in the hand strap, which is included. On this side, there's the micro SD card slot. Now these things are very tiny. So if you have bigger fingers, you may need tweezers to put this in or take it out. It does have some built-in memory, but it's only good for recording about 30 seconds of video, so it's pretty much useless. So you will need to get your own micro SD card, which is not included with the camera, unless you buy it as a bundle. There's the mini HDMI output. There is no regular composite or component AV output on this camera. You only get the HDMI. And then finally there's a little reset button there in case the camera screws up. Here's the switch to go between taking videos and taking photos. So it's nice that they give you an actual switch instead of a button or something on the touch screen. And then here is the zoom control. Zoom in, zoom out, although it's just digital zoom, so it's not the best. And in the middle there is the recording button for taking video, and also the shutter button for taking photos. And since it does double duty, that means it has two steps to it. The first step is for focusing when you're taking a photo, and then the second step actually takes the photo. But when you're taking videos, you need to push it into that second step to get it to work. If you just lightly tap it on the first step, it won't even respond. So I found myself, tapping it, expecting it to start or stop the video, and it does nothing because you have to push it in all the way in video mode. On top here is the grill that covers the built-in stereo microphone and the built-in speaker. Now, I don't know how they get stereo microphones out of this slot which goes front to back, unless maybe one channel's in front of the other or something like that. But that is where the microphone is, so you don't want to put your finger over it when you're using the camera because that'll muffle the microphone. It turns on just by opening the screen, although you do get a power button here in case you want to turn it on and off manually. And it is a touchscreen operated camera, so you get a little menu here. You get some scene settings. I just leave it on automatic, but you also get sunset, backlight compensation, night mode, snow and beach, skin, and back to auto. And you get some video effects, which are pretty much just gimmicks. Normal, 70s old film, color filter, sepia, black and white, and back to normal. And finally some settings. The flash turns on or off that light when you're taking videos, or also has an auto setting. These menus can be a little bit tricky if you have big fingernails. You might end up hitting the wrong thing. But there's the LED video light. It's pretty bright, but this camera does not have very good low light sensitivity, so if it's really dark, even that light won't help you that much. Now we can go turn that back off. Resolution, full HD is 1080p 30 frames a second. Sports HD is 720p 60 frames a second, and standard is VGA 640 by 480 4:3 aspect ratio at 30 frames a second. So you can see if I put it in VGA mode, yeah, these menus are a little bit tricky because they put the exit button right at the edge, so you have to be careful hitting it. But there it is, VGA mode, so you can see it changed the aspect ratio to 4:3. And I did notice that 1080p and 720p are both the same bit rate, so you get the same file size in either mode. In the videos I've taken so far, the bit rate is around 8 to 9 megabits, which is not really that high for 1080p. Obviously, a AVC HD camcorder can go all the way up to 24 megabits, but this is good if you want smaller files that are quicker to upload. And the field of view does not change between 1080p and 720p, unlike a lot of other cheap HD camcorders where 1080p mode is more zoomed in. This, it stays the same for either one. And you can change your photo size, either 5, 8, or 12 megapixels, dual recording, and then you can set your date and time, autoplay, capture sound, and then language, which is obvious, stabilizer, or the digital image stabilizer, where you can turn it on or off. Seems to work pretty well. Pre-record constantly records 3 seconds of video into a buffer, and then when you hit the start button, it adds the last 3 seconds in the buffer to the beginning of the video, so it pretty much starts recording 3 seconds before you hit the button, although obviously that constant recording in the buffer eats up the battery life quicker. So unless you have some need for that, it's best to leave it off. And you can format your SD card, TV system, NTSC or PAL, although since this is only HDMI output, it doesn't really make much of a difference unless you're using a CRT HD TV, because as far as I know, all flat panel HD TVs can accept either system just fine. And smile detection on or off, I haven't really tried that to see how well it works, so I just leave it off. And then you get your playback mode for reviewing your photos and videos. You can get thumbnails of your different videos and stuff. You can delete them. I think it has some editing capabilities where you can like split a clip into 2 clips and things like that. So there is some capability to manage your videos and photos through this touchscreen here. Although unless you have small fingers, it probably won't be the best to use. The Philips camcorder does work with iMovie HD 06 on my MacBook here, although it can take quite a while to copy the files over. But you can just drag them, drop them into the project and it works just fine. And you don't have to worry about deinterlacing because it takes progressive 720p and 1080p video. As far as my criticisms of the physical design go, it has a rather glossy finish which looks nice, although it makes it a little bit slippery, so you really should use the hand strap just in case it slips out of your hand. That way at least it won't go crashing down to the ground. And also this flip out LCD, it flips out at a bit of an angle. You can see it's sort of raised up like that, and if you try to push it down to be perpendicular, it just springs back up. So this hinge is a little misaligned, so it makes it a little bit tricky, because if you put the screen to be horizontal, then the camera is going to be tilted and your videos are going to be tilted. So you have to remember to compensate for that. Just make sure you look at this part of it to see if you're aiming straight and not at the screen, because that'll be always a little bit tilted up like that. I suppose over time that spring in there will be a little bit weaker and it'll just sag down more normally to the correct angle. And you can also flip it down like that for watching your videos on the screen here. And it can also flip out to face you when you're recording. See, there I am, and it flips around the correct way. So at least you get that much. So, and they don't give you much of a grip to open it. So if you're wearing gloves or something, it might be a little bit tricky to get this thing open. And this is a very glossy finish, so if you get the black version, I'm sure it's going to be a fingerprint magnet, which makes me glad that I got the white one, because that way the fingerprints are not as obvious on it. Looks nice though. Looks stylish. And now let's look at some test footage recorded on the Philips CAM300 camcorder. All of the video clips you will see were recorded in HD 1080p mode. Let's see how loud we can go before the microphone distorts on this camera, or if it has some kind of audio limiter. Now I'll put it at my normal listening level. It's about where I usually have it while I'm driving, around 18 to 20. scary looking microwave tower. The microwave horns are still up, even though they probably haven't been used in many years. I did a video on this in 2009, but here's your chance to get a little bit of a closer look at it in HD. Pretty cool looking. And appropriately enough, it's on a street named Tower Road. Here's a 1800s schoolhouse. The first school in this town. It was used up until the early 1930s when a larger elementary school was built. And it's currently under private ownership, so it's not like a historic landmark or anything, but they keep it in good condition. I believe it was used as an artist's studio. I don't know if it's still used as that today, but that's what I heard. So that's 1800s schoolhouse. Now let's do a brief audio quality test of the Philips CAM300 camcorder. Here's a test of backlight compensation. This is with it turned off. This is with backlight turned on, which seems to have the opposite effect of what I wanted. It actually makes the whole thing darker instead of making the sewing machine brighter. Here is bright indoor lighting. Just some test footage here. See how close I can go with it still in focus. Autofocus takes a little bit to respond. It's about 4 inches or so. So it's pretty good. Now I'll turn off my lights in series so you can see how it responds to lower lighting. And that drastically reduced the brightness. So this would be considered low lighting, and this would be considered almost totally dark. So, not very good in low light. Let's try turning on the video light. Okay, now this is with the video light on. This is pretty much only the video light providing the lighting. Not too bad. Looks like the shutter speed might be slowing down to compensate though. But if I step away, obviously it's not as good. It's only about 3 or 4 feet range, useful range of the light. Turn our lights back on. And we're back to bright lighting. So my initial impressions of this camera are pretty favorable. The big advantage for me is the built-in stereo microphone, and it's also nice having the built-in LED light. And the image stabilizer seems to work pretty good. Autofocus is kind of slow, but at least it has it. So you can do reasonable close-ups of items and then go farther away. And it'll adjust to that. So the field of view is not that wide. It's a little bit zoomed in compared to other camcorders, but it's not too bad. So that's the Philips CAM300 HD camcorder.